different, as I think most of you know, because it's not just a semester-long project. And in addition, we just had 2 students that participated in developing a plan for the community survey that Clarkdale wants to implement. And so what we did in my survey methods class was essentially design the implementation plan and developed a working questionnaire. We would like to use our 30 minutes partly to sort of go over the plan and then kind of scroll through the questionnaire to get input, because we thought it would be more productive use of time to be a little bit more interactive in our presentation. And so Janelle Siffert is actually doing this project as part of her master's in urban environmental planning. And so she'll be continuing on in the spring to actually help implement and at least preliminarily, hopefully, analyze some of the data. And then Clayton Holtz joined her and Clayton is an undergraduate honor student in planning. And so he's, so they teamed up. Janelle will do the overview of sort of the plan, and then Clayton will scroll through the questionnaire.
Sure. Yeah, the clicker, and then Allison, you can zoom in.
I give you the power.
Yeah. So you just
If you want to do it after.
Yeah.
I mean, does it work? Here, actually click on the screen. We'll try it again. Test again. There we go. Okay. I just first wanted to start out by mentioning that you 2 have the questionnaire, and it is updated from some of the feedback we received from the mayor. And yeah, let's just get right into it. So just a brief overview of today's agenda. We're just going to go over what the goals of the survey were and our survey plan implementation, then go into a brief timeline, and then we'll go through the draft questionnaire. Clayton will be going through that, and then we'll open it up to you guys for some feedback and discussion. So there were 3 main goals that we were focusing on when designing the survey. The first was that we wanted to assess Clarkdale's resident satisfaction and dissatisfaction with the town's services, amenities, and events. And then, as you'll see in the questionnaire, we do separate out services, amenities, and events into different tables. The second goal was to identify residents' interests and priorities for the longer term plan, and we align that with the strategic plan, so that timing. And then finally, we wanted to evaluate how residents' goals and values aligned with the strategic plan that exists now. So here's just a little overview of the strategic plan. We really utilize this, especially for the future visioning portion of our questionnaire, because we really wanted to ensure that the residents of Clarkdale were aligned with your vision as well. So we took a lot of verbiage from especially the copper, and then the next slide, which is all of the goal areas. So as you can see here, there are, it's interesting because the last group was a lot more focused, but this is a very broad look at a lot of different elements within Clarkdale. So we wanted to create kind of a brief, we want to get a brief understanding of residents' perceptions of each of these broad areas. So again, if you look at the questionnaire, you'll see that a lot of this verbiage is matching in the future visioning section. And then additionally, we wanted to keep it brief, as we had discussed before. So we actually just yesterday, just had our class take the survey, and it was between 4 to 7 minutes. That's how long everyone took. Good. Yeah. So right in that time range. Perfect. So the survey plan. So we want to utilize mainly a web-based survey, and we have a few methods of rolling that survey out. So it was also a lot of work done on Clarkdale's behalf, because you guys had it all set up so well for us to implement. We wanted to send it out through emails through the weekly newsletter, the Clarkdale Update, and from past information, we realized that there's about 270 readers on that, but it goes out to 600 recipients. So we will have it out for a few weeks, so hopefully we can reach, as close to the 600 as possible with that. And then we will also be sending out some information about the survey with a link and a QR code and some information about how to get a paper survey in the utility bills that Clarkdale residents receive if they get utilities through Clarkdale. So you guys predicted that the utility bills cover about 85% of residents, so that's a lot of that's really good coverage. And then also we wanted to utilize your social media sites, so Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to also get the message across. And then finally, we also wanted to put up some flyers because we are cognizant of the fact that some people may not use social media or be on their emails a lot. And also it's not a bad thing to keep reminding them to take the survey. So we also will have printed surveys available, and there were 2 locations we were discussing, the post office and the public library, to have those printed surveys available. We really wanted to have those available because, you know, some people may not have access to the internet or may not be necessarily tech savvy, or may just prefer filling out a survey in person. But we do want the web-based survey to be the brunt of the questionnaire data because it's a lot easier to process and we can process it quicker. And we're also open to other suggestions, but I think the post office and the public library are great options. And then we also came up with 2 ideas for possible incentives. We really wanted to keep it cost effective, so we didn't want to, you know, give everyone a cash incentive for completing the survey. So a couple creative ideas that we've come to are first, the town of Clarkdale has offered that there's a potential to offer free Clarkdale water bottles for those who complete the survey. So that would kind of be at the end of the survey, mentioning come to City Hall if you want a free water bottle. And then our other idea includes donated gifts from local businesses. So getting them to donate gift cards or other, you know, physical items from their shops or locations, and then we could put together a raffle system. This one is a little bit more tricky because we do want the survey results to be anonymous, but when selecting who wins the raffle, we need some way of identifying them. So we could have that at the end of the survey and ask for their email and name, but specify that it will remain separate from the results. So we will not be looking at anyone's name if they do that. And yes, we are also open to other ideas in that department as well. And here is our timeline. So December, this month, woo, we plan on refining the questionnaire, finish refining it, and hopefully we'll be able to, you know, iron some stuff out today. That's exciting. And then we're also planning on getting through the human subjects and cultural reviews. And then January through February, that's when we plan to launch and distribute the survey. We do want to have it, you know, up for as long as possible. That makes feasible sense in the timeline given. And then from March through April, that's when I'll be working on analyzing the results and creating the write-up and recommendations from the results. Now, finally, just a questionnaire overview, and so I'll just briefly go over this and then I'll hand it over to Clayton for some more detail. So the first section of the questionnaire is really focused on the residents' level of satisfaction or dissatisfaction with Clarkdale overall. So we wanted kind of a wider view and then zooming in a little bit on their local neighborhood. And on each of these, we ask about specific services, amenities, and then events as Clarkdale overall. And then we go into second section, which is priorities for the future. That's the part that gets more into the strategic plan goals. And then finally, we finish off with some basic demographics. We really wanted to keep it brief because we didn't want to make anyone uncomfortable, because some questions, you know, can make people, you know, uncomfortable. Yeah, and so we didn't think that was necessarily the focus of the survey, so we kept that very brief. And then, yeah, I'm not sure exactly how the
we'll share the screen.
PDF.
Yeah, we gotcha.
Awesome.
Just a couple other comments quickly. So the recommendation would be, in addition to sending out Right, so it takes time for people to collect the data, and best practices is you would have multiple invitations, potentially with slightly different wording, and so we're thinking maybe twice in the monthly newsletter. Every time in the weekly email during the time period that we want it to be launched. And maybe retweeting and reposting at different times to catch different audiences, which may be another specific recommendation added to the overview.
Yeah, during Made in Clarkdale.
Yeah.
We just
Yeah.
missed.
Yeah, I was gonna just remind everyone that we do have a website as well, so we can put the link on our website.
Awesome.
And then in terms of the ideas for the physical locations, town offices in general, we usually have good luck with putting things on the bulletin board or just in each of the town offices. The nation's facilities, so on the tribal area, they have some facilities. One of them is like for high school mentoring. There's some facilities that are public. Senior center. So, and they are our residents. So I think that would be great if we could get some things there. And then I wrote school, and I wasn't thinking the survey, but just, hey, a note to parents, know that there is a survey and maybe a link or a QR code or something. And then the other thing I was just gonna ask about is, I know like when we use SurveyMonkey, like we can tell it only allow one answer from each IP address. So how are we addressing that people don't send in 20 responses to one?
Using Qualtrics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We should have the ability, yeah, we'll use Qualtrics, which is a software program we have access to, which has a little bit more advanced sophistication, so we should be able to do this.
So you can do crosstabs.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Are you still presenting?
Yes.
We do have a little bit more.
Yeah.
We're gonna walk through the questionnaire. Should I try out to see if I can,
I think we have to get a little bit closer for
it's going up and down a little bit.
there's also a laser on it, so if you get a little bit closer, you might be able to point out specific things.
That's a lot of functionality in one small device.
Okay, well, so our questionnaire starts off with some information, contact information for Susan, and then a short introduction, basically giving the respondents a little bit of a background of what we're going to do with this information, and also that we are going to keep their identity confidential. All this information will not be attached to them, you know, their IP address, their address, nothing like that. You know, just some basic information. And then this first question just sort of primes the respondents. Tell us how satisfied or dissatisfied you are living in the town of Clarkdale. It's a 7-point scale, ranging from very satisfied, I can't really fit it, but that's all it is. Very satisfied to, thank you, very dissatisfied. So they get to answer, just sort of put them in the mindset of, okay, how satisfied am I with this town? And if they want changes, that will be addressed in the further questions. Question 2 is the first table question that has many different questions inside of it. But the question states, how dissatisfied or satisfied are you with the amenities? So as Janelle mentioned, we do table, as you'll see, for amenities, events, and services. Thank you. So number of parks, quality parks, trails, access points to Verde River, bike paths, public arts, and then there's a few more. Downtown area and historic preservation. Each of these will have an option for unsure. So if they just don't really want to answer, or if it doesn't really apply to them, say they don't really use the trails that often, or they don't have a bike, so they're not going to use the bike paths, they would just choose unsure. Other than that, this is their chance to say whether they really like an aspect of the town, or if they think it needs some improvements. The first few question stems are about the town of Clarkdale as a whole. And later on in this questionnaire, there are some questions more specific to a person's neighborhood. So this is about the services that Clarkdale provides, streets and roadways, water, sewer services, few more, this isn't, we know the survey is not, it's not like a promise to respondents that we're, they're gonna fix all their problems, but we're really just trying to get as much information about what is actually feasible for the town of Clarkdale to look at and improve if necessary. So a few more towards marketing, and then this is the first question. I think there's one other question that says, what of the previous question, which is the most important to you? So this gives the respondents a chance to say, not only am I dissatisfied, but this one is most important to me, more important than everything else. Or, well, yeah, that even if they say they are satisfied, they can still say it's very important to keep giving this aspect of Clarkdale attention. Oh, okay. So this is community events. Clarkdale, if you have any other events that we don't state here, please let us know so we can add it to the questionnaire. But this just gives the respondents a chance to say if they appreciate these events. Most likely respondents should answer unsure if they don't attend these events, or maybe dissatisfied if they don't get the chance to attend the events for accessibility reasons or the schedule, or they didn't get the memo, something like that. Also, at the end of this questionnaire, respondents do have a chance to write in notes. So if they have a specific problem, they'll be able to address that at the very end of the survey. So this is the first question, asking respondents about the future. It's working with those copper goals, those 6 development goals that Clarkdale has for the next 2 to 5 years. This gives respondents a chance to actually directly tell Clarkdale how they feel about these goals. So 5-point scale from very important to very unimportant. We're basically just asking them, do you like these goals? Are these good goals? Should we prioritize some more than others? Give you a chance to maybe read some of those. Thank you. Yeah.
Doing great.
This is a long one, so.
Yeah, and these, as the Clarkdale folks will realize that the verbiage in the tables are basically from the strategic plan, in some cases reworded a little bit to make sure that they're understandable by the residents writ large. But yeah, they should look familiar.
And we don't hit every single point, but that's basically because there's some things like very technical things, maybe about zoning or about
Yeah.
like
Or
that.
like staff,
You know,
like
that-
management ways
we-
of the town.
we
that
chose the
are
ones that-
internal. Yeah.
We chose the ones that we think that are going to be most important to citizens and that residents will actually like care about. And then this question as well has choose 3 of these that are most important to you. Next, we ask them what area of Clarkdale, what neighborhood they live in. This is for the next few questions. It's going to ask them more localized questions. It's going to ask right about the area they live. So this is important information, not only for the following questions, but also to find out who's taking the survey. Are areas of Clarkdale overrepresented or underrepresented in this survey? And how can we access the opinions of those who did not, the areas of Clarkdale that did not answer the survey as much? So this is the same as the very first question. Tell us how satisfied or dissatisfied you are with your local area. And then the next question is the amenities in the local area you live. Again, very similar to it just kind of, this section of the questionnaire mirrors the first few questions. So I'll just go through it a little quicker. Oh yeah, can you scroll up a little bit? Thank you. So yeah, there's a couple questions about amenities just in the local area. Then we asked them where did they hear about town issues? What are they most likely to get their information from? Because another very important part of the survey is how do we contact the residents of Clarkdale most effectively? Because the town of Clarkdale wants their residents to know important things about what's going on in the town. And if we have more surveys in the future, we want them to know about that. We were questioning this question 12. Do we say instead of what is the best way to contact you? Maybe what is, what were we gonna, sorry.
Well, I think there was kind of 2 points. We were wondering if it was just generally instead of just future surveys, and then also we were kind of curious about. I think it was a prefer not to answer. It was prefer not to be contacted
Right.
as the final answer or final option.
I have a small suggestion, like a verbiage, maybe just saying like, what is the best way to get your opinion on the town?
Sure,
Yeah.
yes,
What's the best way?
People
Right.
like sharing.
Sure, not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And this may be like saying in the future, what is the best way to or maybe not even contact you, but
Just get your opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and let you know about future.
or let you know about things going on in the town.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So we're definitely gonna look at this question in the future, tinker with it a little bit.
Yeah, so we piloted it, feedback, but we didn't have, yesterday, but we didn't have time to incorporate all the
Yeah.
feedback, and we thought we would pose some of the issues here.
Yeah, because I mean, for me, it's not just about services, like you
Yeah.
were saying.
Yeah.
I mean, we've rolled out several things in the last year just to, and adding to things that were already there. So what more can we do? Like,
Yeah,
we don't
definitely.
know. I mean, because town walls, we've talked about that.
I'm good, I'm good.
But yeah, I think that's really good. On the prior question, I'm on the Clarkdale weekly update. I might put email update just so that, because it kind of distinguishes a little bit more, and then small talk newsletter. And then Town of Clarkdale Facebook page or other social media, because we do have other, I mean, I don't get on, but we.
Yeah.
And then the only other thought, I know you have other, but I wondered if there's any value with, from a council member, board or commission member, or a staff member, so kind of word of mouth or
Word
a
of
direct.
Yeah.
Because our council members are out there a lot.
That's, yeah, that's.
And it'd be interesting, like how well are we educating our board and commissions members to then go out and represent us in the community, so.
And would you like for the Facebook versus like Twitter or something? Because I think Shell manages a lot of those. Like, would she want like Facebook as one option and Twitter as another? So she
No,
does
I
kind of
think we're
puts it
good
on
with just social
Okay.
media. I mean, I like Facebook or other social media. I think it's good for me.
I'll wrap.
We might wanna put, because the demographics on social
Very
media are
different.
very different.
And, you're right.
So
I'm good
it's just
with it.
something, if
Either way.
you're doing a lot of social media.
And Shell would probably tell me to shut up and she wants to know it. Stop talking, stop talking.
And then there's a few more questions to go.
Yeah, I'll-
Yeah,
Sorry, okay, so no.
I'll-
We intended this to be.
Yeah.
Kind of working.
Yeah.
I'll wrap up pretty quick with the last few questions, because we're basically just asking about demographics, age, how long they've lived in Clarkdale, race and ethnicity. The point of these are very similar to why we asked what neighborhood the respondent lives in. We just want to find out like if people are being over or underrepresented in this questionnaire, and how maybe we can remedy that. Thank
Oh,
you.
and we did have a quick question about the areas. We didn't want to, I mean, income is kind of a tricky question. People don't want to ask that, but we were wondering if there was, because we have these neighborhoods, if they each kind of had a
I think
broad.
if we know the neighborhood, we probably know.
Okay,
That's
like
true.
roughly, okay. That's what we were thinking, so we were.
Yeah, it's pretty standard to ask demographic questions in certain academic research, but it's up to you whether you want it.
Gender there?
I don't know
I don't see gender.
No, yeah, gender, we'd usually ask, income, education, we'd usually ask.
Yeah.
We just wanted to
But-
keep it
but
brief,
if
so we
you
were
have race,
saying-
if you have race, why no gender? Why race and no gender?
I don't know. I think-
Well, probably,
but-
so the race ethnicity question was more on our forefront of the mind, because in conversations with Clarkdale, they were interested in the indigenous people's perspectives
Yeah.
in particular, so knowing if they're covered.
So since we were trying to keep it as brief as possible, because we wanted this to be something that
The census,
wasn't difficult.
Census is part of that. But,
Yeah.
but when you're like cross
Talent.
tapping data, having that male, female thing could be very valuable.
Mayor, what do you
So-
think?
The same.
You want gender?
You want sexist, but definitely like this to that.
She's on.
Do I want gender?
or any other demographic sort of
Do
characteristics.
you want to see there are differences in opinions between males and females? Or
I
satisfaction?
think maybe gender might not be bad, but I think other than that, what you have in here is
Sex.
Gender is
What were you
charged.
saying?
Well, gender is kind of charged right now,
Yeah,
right?
and that's really why I didn't wanna ask it.
The sex.
In our
Male,
community,
female, other.
I don't know, that's why I was wanting to stay away from it, but
Right.
the mayor thinks that she knows the community 10 times better than me. So if you're not worried about asking that it might off-put people,
You just don't say gender. you
Well,
say
and you can
sex.
say like, what identifies
science.
you, or
Yeah.
like what you most
Sex is
identify
science.
with or whatever, and you
Genders
can
aren't
kind of
to-
change it.
It's-
Male, female, adult, prefer not to answer.
Right, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's up to you.
That's a really good one. We're taking this to council on the 12th. For feedback from the council. That's one I would love to get feedback. Mayor, are you okay with that?
absolutely, yeah.
Because there'll be some strong opinions, I think.
Yeah, we're just
There may
gonna
be, so,
go over the
yes.
can of worms. and-
So another best practice in survey methods is, because I mean, this is sort of wanting to get the sort of most random sample you want, but right, there's multiple people in the household, so I don't know if you all want to just say, answer it, or but then that's like the IP issue, like,
Yeah.
what if like two people in the household
Or
want to
maybe
weigh
we
in,
could say on
or,
behalf of your household, you know.
yeah.
I mean, you could have different opinions, but
We didn't think it was important, but oftentimes it'll be like, we invite the person who celebrated the most recent birthday to
Right.
answer the survey, because
I
the
just,
birthday.
I think this is such a balance of keep it short,
Yeah,
otherwise they're gonna be overwhelmed, and that we've not done this before. So, I mean, any information is gonna be helpful to us, so I don't wanna get too caught up in being able to do crosstabs and
yeah.
drill down that. I mean, this is
I do
gonna
that.
keep. But, I mean, it's gonna be, the results of this are gonna drive our strategic plan. We had to do our strategic plan this year with more anecdotal input. We didn't have any
That's so
data
hard.
to draw upon. And so, I mean, I am like freaking excited about, okay, yeah, people agree or don't, you know, what do we do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have some thoughts, for the sake of time. Right, so, well, first, that just came up with one, like, as far as like, because I'm wondering, like, as far as proving whether or not, or how much you're gonna be able to prove whether or not they're a resident or not. And then also the issue of duplication, and also the issue of multiple people in the household. Now, I wonder, is there a way, like, you do want the anonymous, like, but it's anonymous to everyone else but the people who need to see it. Maybe that, we may need to go about it, maybe in a sense, maybe not like the names, but like maybe even like, I'm trying to think, I think you're gonna get duplicates. I'm trying to figure out how Facebook and Twitter is everywhere on the internet. And if that's the case, maybe you can have a question to ask, are you a resident of Clarkdale? If not, then when did you leave or how did you leave? Like, why?
There'll be a filter
Yeah.
question, there'll be a filter question
Yeah.
that is, we only are interested in the opinions of,
Yeah,
and people don't, it's hard to get people to participate in surveys, so I could see somebody really wanting their opinion to weigh in heavily and maybe being like, I'm gonna answer it 25 times, so I can, but most people, it's like hard to get them to answer, so if they participate, they're not gonna participate.
I'm
Aaron,
thinking, I'm
we let them
thinking
talk first.
I'm thinking that IP address is a good one. I mean, I think there are a few households where there's one computer and could it limit people
Yeah.
that. And maybe we, on the automatic response to, you've already taken the survey, if you haven't, and you know, somebody else in your household did, you can go to the library and they have a computer and you can do it kind of thing. But I think most people have multiple, either iPhones or iPad or.
Yeah.
Everybody has their.
Cause they'll be able, it'll be formatted so they can do it on their
Yeah, so you
phone.
can see
Right.
what's taken on a different device.
Yeah, so I feel like the inability for someone to be able to take it is slim.
I still have two more thoughts. I mean, you
Okay.
can't invite me here, I just have.
Okay,
yeah.
Thoughts. Okay, like I am like.
Yeah, I wanna make sure I've gotta run off soon though, and I think the mayor's input is really important at this moment in time.
Okay, well,
So we're happy to maybe meet with you separately and get your input.
Wait, one more. Mayor, go ahead.
You know, you can, but I think, you know, put your best recommendations in this draft.
Yeah.
Because it's not just for me, it's the count, as Susan said, as the council looks at it, we'll come up with our consensus agreement on what we'd like to see in this survey, what we don't like in it, or what we don't want to include in it. I want to keep it as simple as possible. I think Susan has said that, because of people, I just want them to answer it. I'm not too caught up in the who is answering it, is sort of which communities are they answering from?
That was my thought.
Huh?
That's, I have quite a good opinion on that. And I'm sure we share the same opinion.
Okay.
Go ahead.
No, I think Bruce, you and I are on the same page on that. And unless the other council members think we need more detail, I don't want too much more detail. We know this community pretty well. So
It seems like where they live is the most important, because that will help you prioritize your goals to different areas of the community, and then the demographics are gonna be
Right.
relatively
But I
homogenous
like the
within the
age
neighborhoods.
thing because, I mean, I think it's a challenge in smaller communities, rural communities, to get young people to stay. So I like that question a lot, because it could be like, you know, they think there's not enough amenities or vice versa. So I like that question. I like the ones
I do
you
too.
on.
So when it comes to the demographic information, because we're so small, the Census Bureau does not spend a lot of time drilling down to details. So what we have is, we'll have margins of error, you know, for a population group of 1,000 of 200. You know, so that pretty much wrecks any kind of validity to the data. So that's so having this information, yeah, it's voluntary, but so is the census. But this does at least provide us a little bit closer information on what the composition of the community. And I think,
And we could add, there's a thing up at the top of the demographics that says, just as a reminder, this is so we know who answered the survey, and you know, this information is entirely confidential. We could even add in there a reminder that they can skip questions at any time.
if you don't like that,
They're not
if you don't want to
comfortable.
tell me, that's fine.
And I do think this will be the #1 area that the council talks about,
Yeah.
particularly with a new council member.
And I think that having this information by these neighborhoods, which where, you know, the normal reaction would just aggregate it all together, and then we'll know. Having it separated out by these neighborhoods is also going to be very important, especially with respect to some of the poorer neighborhoods and some of the indigenous neighborhoods. I think having that data and what their opinions are is going to be important.
as well as the neighborhoods that don't have as close affinity
Correct.
to Clarkdale, and we do have a few of
Right.
those.
Yeah. Oh, and then Mingus View is 2 separate words.
Oh, good.
What is it? Which question number?
Mingus View.
Oh, okay,
It's
okay.
not on the list of neighborhoods.
Right.
Okay.
The neighborhood.
It's a neighborhood,
The
yeah.
neighbor. That way you don't look like you
I just think this.
I know, right?
I know we keep interrupting, but and I think I
this is
shared
the
this
point.
earlier, I'm really happy with it. I mean, I don't even know how old am I? I've done dozens and dozens of community surveys, and I was super excited by this tool.
Yeah, yes, I was too.
Okay, do you all have any more questions before we
I
open
have
it
a
up?
really
for-
quick question. When you finish.
Oh, I'm done.
Ruth, do you have any more?
I think he still had one question.
Well, this is the last question.
Yeah, is there
It's
anything
just-
else you want to tell us?
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
Wildfires.
Yeah, I know that was kind of a point where you guys are concerned about getting a flood of information in there, but we figured, you know, it doesn't have to be analyzed right away, like it could
That
just
is
be
good.
something to.
It's useful information, because if we keep hearing about potholes in a certain
Exactly,
neighborhood,
exactly.
all right, then we gotta send public.
And
works out.
we considered if you did wanna, you know, have this survey be more longitudinal, then it could help guide the future surveys.
Yeah.
And people, yet when you're asking people for their opinions and then you're not giving them an open-ended
Yeah.
opportunity to
That's
like.
frustrating.
it's
By the way,
frustrating.
this
And
is
there might be
bothering me.
something
Yeah.
completely off our radar,
Exactly.
and it's very possible that it
And it
is.
could, and because you talked about wanting to do this again in the future, and so that could inform
Yeah.
potentially
How we do it.
additional input you get from folks.
Absolutely. You know, that's why I always like this question, because if you read through them and you see very similar words or comments coming through, we know that's something that is, to me, it starts saying that's important.
No, I love this question.
Flooding in a certain.
As much as it pains me.
Yeah.
It'll be better than the town hall where you have to.
Oh, I
say,
know.
right,
Town
At least
hall.
they, right, they're not.
Yeah.
Okay,
Great job.
Thank you.
Great
So
job.
one other thing I want
Called
to
an
mention.
those are opportunities, not.
Communication.
Yes.
So one other thing I want to mention, because it's really important for like our timeline, is we do have to still go through the institutional review board to get the human subjects ethical. Yes. And we do have tentative approval from what we understand from the cultural review, which is specific to the indigenous communities. But that's not including going on to the reservation lands. So you had mentioned, Susan, the prospect, and we talked about it
Yeah.
early on, like potentially trying to go into some of their community centers.
Mhm.
And if we do that, that
It's
is
a whole
probably
nother-
gonna require a
a whole
full-blown
nother-
review. So
Yeah,
that's
let's-
something you might think about.
Let's not this time.
Okay.
Cause they can still
Let's-
get the emailer and stuff, it just won't be
Yeah.
like physical
Yeah.
flyers.
Right.
Through the ways we talked about distributing it, it's totally fine,
Okay.
but going like distributing
Physically
printed
putting it.
comments on, we would have to get
I
tribal
had
authority.
forgotten that we talked about that, but yeah, I think for at least this time, and then we could also, because we'll be able to see the neighborhood, and if we see certain things, we could do a focus group.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Drill down further.
Yeah, cause you guys can use the data.
Yeah,
Keep-
very much. Thank you for reminding me of that.
Yeah, this is the first time I've
Gone
done
through
tons
that.
of survey work, but this is the first time we've thought about engaging indigenous communities, and so I just wanna be really cautious.
Yeah, and we
Well,
don't know how
respectful.
long it'll take if we have to go on the
Yeah.
reservation, cause it could take, I don't know, 2 months.
I mean,
or
and
something.
really,
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's fine. We're not going to other neighborhoods, so for purposes of being equal, it
Yeah.
kind of makes
And
sense
if we
not to,
want,
but-
if you want that perspective, we could always do like a stage 2, longer term type of thing.
Yeah, cause.
But we
the-
wanna get it launched so that,
Yeah,
you know,
right.
we have to report to you.
Yeah, look at you guys.
Gotcha.
This is awesome.
Will your survey be in Spanish at all? Cause I know you probably have a small.
We don't have to do
segment
that, we need to
that-
find a translator because we'll have to do all of the housing, we
The
have stuff in.
It was
Spanish,
interesting
English.
because we have one neighborhood that, I don't know, just you would think would be more prevalent in Spanish speaking. And we had to do a door-to-door surveys for our CDBG. And we took translators with us for that purpose and didn't need them at all.
Okay, yeah, what we can do is we can put like a note in Spanish on the cover letter that
If you need
basically
it.
says if you need it. And I mean, we have Spanish speaking students that we could easily get to translate. We have to do translation and back translation. And so we could do that, just to have it
Yeah, in case.
prepared in case anybody requests
That way you
it.
won't need it.
Yeah, and it is 5:30, so I think any of those students have to head out.
Yeah, I think I gotta go.
Yes, a round of applause. Thank you.